Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are walking into what's often described as probably the most financially stressful consumer experience out there, short of maybe buying a house.
Right, buying a car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you've ever walked onto a dealer lot, or worse, into that finance office, you probably know that heavy, kind of sinking feeling.
Oh, yeah. It feels like a high-stakes poker game, doesn't it? And the dealer seems to be holding all the cards, all that insider knowledge.
And you're just sitting there hoping not to go completely bust.
It's true. Car buying is notoriously opaque. I mean, often intentionally so, you have to figure. Dealers really thrive on complexity, on speed, and honestly, on the consumer's emotional attachment to that shiny new car.
Yeah, you fall in love with the car first.
And then the numbers get fuzzy. But the good news, based on this stack of sources we've dug into today, especially some really invaluable guidance from industry veterans like Ray Shefska, who spent, 40 years inside this world?
Lots of years, yeah.
The dealer's playbook. It's actually pretty accessible now.
We've basically cracked that book wide open for this deep dive. We're building this on actual cheat sheets for the showroom, specific Q&A protocols, and even a pretty comprehensive glossary of all that intimidating financing jargon.
Right.
We're not just summarizing the rules here. We're trying to teach you how to play the game, on their turf and hopefully come out ahead.
Our mission today is, well, it's crystal clear. We want to stop you from being just an unwitting participant in a transaction that's fundamentally designed to maximize the dealer's profit, often at your expense. We are going to try and equip you with the exact strategies, even the language you need to stay in control, to focus on the numbers that actually matter, and navigate both major battlegrounds, the showroom floor and the dreaded finance and insurance office.
The F&I office.
The F&I gauntlet. So the core principle here is really turning that stressful, high-pressure thing into a well-rehearsed negotiation.
Exactly.
It all starts with preparation, which brings us immediately to the single most important concept in buying a car, doesn't matter if it's new or used. Okay, let's set the scene a bit. The dealer's goal, fundamentally, is laser-focused on just one thing: maximizing your profit margin.
Right.
At every single opportunity. And the very first step in this process, it usually begins with the salesperson immediately trying to convert you into what the industry calls a payment buyer.
Ah, the payment buyer. And this is where they try to anchor you, right?
Yeah.
Get you focused immediately on a comfortable monthly number so that you kind of lose sight of the big picture, the total cost of owning that car.
Precisely.
This is tactic number one, what we're calling the monthly budget trap. The salesperson kicks things off, maybe something like, so do you have a monthly budget in mind?
And the absolute wrong answer is volunteering any specific number. It doesn't matter if it's $500 or $1,500 a month. The moment you say something like, well, I really don't want my payment to be more than, say, $700 per month.
You're showing your hand.
You've given them everything they need. They now know exactly how much wiggle room they have. They can squeeze you by maybe extending the loan term or adding high profit, often unnecessary accessories,
Right.
all while keeping you technically within your comfortable payment window.
It gives them that critical space to maneuver. So the expert response drawn from, the playbook of seasoned negotiators, it needs to be firm, simple, and really non-committal. Something like, I have a total purchase price in mind. I'd really like to stay focused on that for now.
That's it. Your job, your only job at this stage, is to negotiate the price of the commodity, the car itself, before you even start discussing how you plan to pay for it.
Yeah.
The second you share your desired monthly payment, believe me, you'll be negotiating that number for the rest of the deal. And that just obscures the actual price of the vehicle, lets them manipulate all the other variables behind the scenes.
So the focus has to stay on the out-the-door price, the OTD. But before we dive deeper into that, we need to hit tactic 2, which is all about isolating the secondary transactions.
Right, the down payment and the trade-in.
Yeah, the dealer will try to bundle these right from the start, linking them emotionally, maybe even mathematically, to your monthly payment calculation.
They'll try to pivot fast. They might say, okay, great, you have a budget. So how much cash were you planning to put down today?
And again, the wrong move is to just volunteer a range, like, oh, I could probably put down between maybe $5,000 and $10,000.
If you offer that figure too early, you immediately flip back into being a payment buyer.
Right back where they want you.
The dealer now knows that the cash you're bringing, well, it can just be absorbed into the car's price instead of actually reducing the total amount you need to finance. You have to defer that conversation.
So the non-negotiable expert response here is something like, look, I just want to know what the out-the-door purchase price is. Can we please stay focused on that number for now?
Exactly. You don't volunteer the down payment amount until the price of the car itself is locked down, preferably in writing.
And the same logic applies, maybe even more strongly, to the trade-in, right? They'll see the car you drove up in
Oh, yeah.
and casually ask, hey, I see you drove a nice car here today. Will you have a trade-in? And that natural kind of gut instinct is to say, yeah, sure. How much can you give me for it?
That is precisely the psychological trap they're setting. They want to juggle three things at once: the price of the new car, your trade-in value, and your monthly payment.
Makes it impossible to track.
Mathematically impossible for you to track where their profit is really coming from. Because, a discount on one thing can easily be offset by a lower valuation on the other. It's a shell game.
Okay, but what if they push back? I mean, I can hear listeners thinking, okay, I get it, don't volunteer the trade-in info early. But what if the dealer just digs in their heels, says they need to see the trading keys for valuation before they'll even talk price? How do you handle that tactically without just storming out?
That's a really fair question. It happens. The sources we looked at emphasize you need to remain polite, but absolutely firm. If they push, you just calmly repeat the core principle. Something like, look, I am ready to purchase this vehicle today at an agreeable price. I'm perfectly happy to discuss the trade-in valuation once we've established the final purchase price of this new car. Until then, could we please proceed with the price negotiation as if it's a straight cash deal?
Framing it as a straight cash deal for now.
Exactly. And by stating you haven't decided yet whether you'll trade it in or maybe sell it privately, you maintain control. If they really insist, okay, then you can pull out the pre-valuation you got elsewhere.
Right, the homework you did beforehand.
And say, look, this is the benchmark value I expect for the trade-in, based on offers I already have. But we must finalize the new car price first before we confirm this part.
And that preparation is so key. Before you even step foot on the lot, you really should have actual written concrete offers from multiple online buyers. You know, the Carvanas, the CarGurus, Vroom, whoever.
Absolutely. That sets an undeniable benchmark for your trade-in value. You only bring that up, challenging the dealer to match or beat those offers after the purchase price of the new car is agreed upon.
Got it. So buying a car and trading one in always treat them as two totally separate transactions.
Couldn't say it better myself. Which brings us back to defining that North Star, the figure you absolutely must stay laser focused on. The out-the-door price.
The OTD.
The OTD price is the absolute total cost to purchase the vehicle. That includes the negotiated selling price, all your state and local taxes, and all mandatory dealer and government fees. Nothing left out.
That's the only number that matters early in this game.
Correct. And the sequence of negotiation, you should almost memorize this. First, negotiate the OTV price. Get it agreed upon. Second, then negotiate the trade-in value using your outside offers as leverage. Third, and only then do you discuss monthly payments or financing details.
And that third conversation happens with a different person.
Okay, exactly. That conversation should be solely reserved for the F&I manager, not the salesperson on the floor.
Okay, so we've established the price we're aiming for, the OTD. But now we need to understand the language they use to build up to that price, or sometimes inflate it. Before we mentally shift to the F&I office, we need a quick primer on the essential vocabulary. Because let's be honest, jargon is often used as a weapon, right? Designed to create confusion, minimize scrutiny.
It absolutely is. Let's start with the standard pricing terms you'll see.
Okay.
First one everyone sees, and often mistakes for the actual price, is MSRP. Manufacturer's suggested retail price.
The sticker price.
The sticker price, yeah. It's on the Monroney sticker, the official window sticker from the factory. Now, here's a really critical insight from the sources. Historically, like 9 times out of 10, a dealership does not sell a car for its MSRP.
Interesting. So usually below that.
Usually negotiated below that figure, yeah. Selling at MSRP is generally a win for the dealer, unless maybe it's a super high-demand, limited supply vehicle.
Gotcha. Okay, then there's the invoice price. That's the one a lot of savvy consumers try to target, thinking it's the dealer's cost.
Right. It's theoretically the price the dealership pays the manufacturer. And knowing this figure can help you understand the dealer's potential margin. But the reality, it's a bit more complex than that, isn't it? The dealer still makes a significant profit, even if they sell you the car for, say, $500 below invoice.
How does that work? If they sell below invoice, how are they making money?
This is where we need to introduce the concept of holdback. The invoice price is not the dealer's final, absolute rock bottom cost.
Okay.
The manufacturer often gives the dealer something called a holdback. Typically, it's around 2% to 3% of either the vehicle's MSRP or sometimes the invoice price itself. And this money is paid back to the dealer later, maybe quarterly or annually.
So it's like a hidden rebate for the dealer.
Yeah, pretty much. It's designed to help the dealership cover costs like floor planning, the interest they pay on the cars sitting on their lot. So even if the dealer sells you the car for $500 below invoice, they still have that 2% or 3% holdback coming back to them later.
Which ensures they still make a profit on the front end of the deal regardless.
Correct. And that's not even counting other potential money, like volume bonuses or sales incentives the manufacturer might give the dealer for hitting certain sales targets each month.
Right.
That's why, when you aim to negotiate, maybe targeting invoice minus $500 or something similar, it doesn't mean the dealer is actually losing money. It just means they're maybe reducing their front-end profits slightly, and they'll likely plan to make it up on the back-end financing add-ons, etc.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, let's talk about the ways dealers overtly try to increase the price above MSRP. This is the infamous additional dealer markup, or ADM.
Yeah, sometimes called market-adjusted pricing. This is basically the dealer's tool to just arbitrarily jack up the asking price.
Especially now, right? With certain cars being in high demand, short supply.
Exactly. And this markup is usually detailed on the dealer addendum sticker. That's that secondary sticker you often see placed right next to the official Monroney sticker.
The second sticker. Full of surprises.
Usually. This sticker lists things like dealer-added accessories, maybe nitrogen in the tires, paint protection film, aftermarket wheels, security etching, that kind of stuff. And right alongside those items, you'll often see that ADM line item.
And those add-ons are basically pure profit for the dealer.
Almost always. They're huge profit centers and should be considered highly negotiable. Honestly, you should push back hard on paying for any add-ons you didn't explicitly ask for.
Good advice. Okay, moving to fees. Let's try and clarify the legitimate versus the potentially negotiable parts of that final OTD price. First up, the destination charge.
Right. Destination charge is manufacturer imposed. It's part of the official MSRP calculation on the Monroney sticker, and it's generally considered non-negotiable. The dealer is simply passing that shipping cost from the factory onto you.
Okay, that one's straightforward. What about the document fee, or doc fee? This one seems to cause a lot of confusion and frustration.
It really does. So the doc fee is theoretically charged to offset the dealership's costs for their non-revenue producing staff. The title clerks, the accounting people who handle the paperwork.
The administrative side.
Exactly. While the service itself is legitimate, there is paperwork involved. The cost charged is often significantly inflated. And here's the critical part. Most states actually cap by law how much a dealer can charge for this documentation fee.
Okay, so there's a legal limit in many places.
Yes, but that cap varies wildly from state to state. It could be $75 in one state and $500 or more in another. So checking your specific state's law before you go in to negotiate is absolutely vital. If a dealer tries to charge you $800 for a doc fee and your state law caps it at $300, well, you have a very clear, very strong negotiation point.
It only pays to do that homework.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, in terms of money changing hands, what about a rebate?
Okay, so a rebate is basically cash offered directly by the manufacturer as an incentive for you to buy their car.
So it's not dealer money, it's factor money.
Correct. Most consumers just apply this rebate amount as additional cash down towards the purchase. But remember, the sources we looked at confirm you usually have the option to request the manufacturer mail you a check for that rebate amount after the sale, if you prefer. It's your money, essentially, to use how you see fit.
Flexible money.
Good to know.
Now, we need to quickly touch on some of the psychology or the slang used on the dealership floor, because if you just accept the first offer they give you, or if you choose not to push back on the pricing and fees we just talked about, well, the dealer slang for a customer like that is a laydown.
Ouch. That sounds pretty harsh. But what does that actually signal to the sales team? I mean, how does a dealer spot a potential laydown quickly?
It's often about observation, body language, the questions you ask or don't ask. A perceived laydown signals a couple of things to them. First, probably a lack of pre-research. Maybe they didn't challenge the MSRP, didn't question the doc fee.
Didn't come prepared.
Exactly. And second, maybe a strong emotional attachment already showing. If you start talking enthusiastically about the color and the trim levels before you've even started negotiating price,
You're signaling you're already sold.
you've signaled you're likely willing to overpay to get that specific car. And once the team kind of mentally flags you as a laydown, well, The serious negotiations are pretty much over from their perspective. They might stop offering any real discounts on the car itself and just shift all their focus to maximizing profit through high-margin add-ons in the F&I office later.
Wow, okay. Could be aware of that dynamic.
Yeah.
One final piece of slang you mentioned we need to know, especially for that inevitable trade-in conversation. Upside down or negative equity?
Right. This is a really common situation, unfortunately. It just means you owe the bank more money on your current car loan than the car's actual current market value.
So if your car is worth $15,000 today, but you still owe $18,000 on the loan, you have $3,000 of negative equity.
Precisely. And this happens a lot, especially if you're trading in a car that you financed over a really long term, like, 72 or even 84 months. You just haven't paid down the principal fast enough compared to the car's depreciation.
Which then has to get rolled into the loan for the new car, making the problem even worse.
Exactly. Which brings us perfectly to that second great battleground. Once the OTD price is theoretically set, the dealer feels like they've won the front-end sale. Now they pivot to go for the back-end profit.
Okay, so we fought the first battle, maybe won it. We've locked in that all-important out-the-door price. But now we step into the F&I office, and this is where the dealers, well, their true master closer, often resides the finance manager. Their job is basically to try and recoup every single dollar that might have been conceded in the showroom.
That's exactly right. It's often called the dealer's second bite at the apple.
Right.
And the F&I manager controls two major profit centers back there. The interest rate they can get you to agree to on your loan, and that menu of often high-margin add-on products.
And they immediately try to seize control of the time variable, right? Through
Right.
tactic 3, loan term manipulation, they'll probably start innocently enough asking something like, so have you thought about what loan term you'd be happy with?
Yeah, and if you respond with any kind of uncertainty like, oh, no, not really, can you maybe help me lower my payment further? Well, you've just handed over your power.
Because the F&I manager knows they can easily manipulate the loan term. They can stretch it out, say from 60 months, which is 5 years, to maybe 72 or even 84 months.
7 years.
Right. And by doing that, they achieve an artificially lower monthly payment figure.
Which sounds good on the surface.
It feels like you got a better deal, maybe, on that monthly payment. But the reality is you significantly increase the total amount of interest you pay over the entire life of that longer loan. Can you give us an example? Like, how much difference does it really make?
Sure. Let's take a $30,000 loan. At 6% interest over 60 months, the total interest cost is around $4,700. Okay. Now, if they stretch that same loan out to 84 months,
7 years.
7 years, the monthly payment does drop, maybe by about $100 a month, which sounds appealing, but the total interest you pay shoots up to over $6,900.
Wow. So you pay an extra $2,200 in interest just to lower your monthly obligation slightly each month.
Exactly. You're paying a huge premium for that slightly lower payment. So the counter tactic here, again, requires preparation. You need to be able to say something like, yes, I have thought about this. In fact, I've already been pre-approved with a couple of competitive credit unions, so I have a good understanding of what my loan terms should look like.
And that pre-approval from an outside lender like a local credit union or your own bank, that's your ultimate weapon, isn't it? For countering tactic 4, the financing offer.
It's absolutely crucial leverage, because they will inevitably ask, probably framing it as convenience, would you consider financing with us? It'll just make all the paperwork so much easier, keeps everything in one place.
And the wrong response is just falling for that convenience trap. Because our source material, the inside info, reveals a pretty dirty secret, right? Dealers almost always mark up the interest rates they offer you compared to what the bank actually approved you for.
They do. They keep the extra profit for themselves.
Wait, hang on. So if the bank tells the dealer, okay, this customer is approved for a 4% interest rate, the dealer might turn around and offer me 5% and just pocket that extra 1% difference.
Precisely. That extra percentage point, or sometimes points, is pure profit for the dealership. It's often called reserve or dealer reserve. So the correct response is to use that pre-approval you got as a shield or even a weapon.
Okay.
You say, yes, I would certainly consider financing with you, but only if you can definitively beat the rate I already have on my pre-approval from my credit union.
But just matching the rate isn't good enough, is it? That doesn't save me anything. This is where that crucial 0.25% rule comes into play, based on the expert advice.
It is absolutely essential. You have to be specific. You state that the dealer needs to beat your pre-approved rate by at least 0.25%, 0.25%, and, very importantly, that lower rate must also result in a demonstrably lower monthly payment.
Why the 0.25% specifically?
It forces them to give you their absolute best offer, potentially even the bank's true buy rate. That's the actual non-marked up rate the lender is giving them for your loan. If they can't beat your outside financing by that significant margin, well, then you just politely decline and stick with your pre-approval. It proves you're not going to pay their hidden markup.
That 0.25% demand really signals to the F&I manager, okay, this person understands how this works. They know about the markup. It changes the power dynamic. Now, here's a more nuanced negotiation strategy the sources recommends, kind of a quid pro quo. You could offer to at least listen to their presentation, their menu of protection packages, the warranties, the GAP insurance, but only in return for the dealer promising upfront to give you the buy rate from the bank on the loan itself. No markup.
That's a pretty powerful move, actually, because you're essentially trading them the opportunity to pitch their high-profit add-ons for your benefit of getting the lowest possible interest rate. It keeps the variables separated and forces some transparency on the loan side.
Okay, this sets us up perfectly for Tactic 5, the add-on menu itself. The F&I manager slides that glossy, often laminated menu across the desk, lists all the usual suspects, extended warranty or service contract, GAP coverage, tire and wheel protection, maybe maintenance plans.
Yep. And they immediately frame every single one of them in terms of a tiny marginal monthly cost increase. They'll say something like, are you interested in our premium theft protection? It's really great peace of mind for just, $10 extra per month.
Just $10 a month? Sounds harmless.
This is arguably the biggest single profit center in the entire F&I office, and that language, focusing on the tiny monthly bump, is absolutely designed to conceal the true total cost. They want you thinking about the incremental $10 or $20, not the full price tag.
So let's do the cold hard math again.
Yeah.
That product, adding just $10 per month over a pretty typical 60-month loan term,
5 years,
actually costs you $600 total.
No.
If it's something pitched at, say, $40 a month over a 72-month loan,
6 years,
you're paying $2,880 for that product.
It adds up incredibly fast.
Wait a minute. $600 for, a key replacement package, maybe $2,800 for an extended warranty. That margin seems unbelievable. Our sources are saying these products are often marked up 200%, sometimes even 300%.
Yeah.
Why are those numbers so huge? What allows the dealer to charge such an insane premium?
Well, it's really a combination of factors. It's the bundling, offering it all conveniently right there while you're signing papers. It's the lack of immediate price transparency. Many of these products, especially the warranties and the GAP insurance, they're actually third-party policies that the dealership buys wholesale at a much lower cost.
So they might buy a warranty policy for maybe $500.
Right, and then turn around and sell it to you for $1,500 or $2,000. They can often get away with this premium because they're presenting it as the only convenient option, packaging it smoothly by rolling it into your monthly payment calculation, and often doing it under some time pressure while you're eager to finish the deal and get your new car.
Right, the fatigue factor.
Exactly. That lack of an immediate, easy way for you to comparison shop right then and there, that's their huge competitive advantage in that moment.
Okay, so the correct response, the absolute must-do, is, thank you for explaining that, but for each of these products, I really need to see the total cost of the product itself, not just the monthly payment impact.
Yes, you have to insist. Ask them to write the actual total dollar price right next to each item listed on that menu. This single move forces transparency. It shifts the conversation away from those misleading marginal payment increases and turns it into a real high-dollar negotiation about the value of each specific product.
And even if you do decide a certain product might have value for you, remember, GAP insurance, tire and wheel protection, service contracts. The prices they first present are almost always negotiable.
Absolutely. Never, ever pay the first price they quote for these. You should aim to negotiate the price down significantly, maybe by at least 30% or more, knowing that even at that discount, the dealer is likely still making a very healthy profit.
Okay, let's quickly break down the potential value of the most common products, because some might actually be worth considering if the price and terms are right.
Okay, let's start with GAP coverage guaranteed asset protection. This one can be crucial, especially if you put very little money down on your purchase or if you have negative equity rolled in.
Because it covers the gap if the car is totaled, right? The difference between what your regular car insurance pays out, the car's current market value, and what you might still owe the bank on your loan.
Exactly. It prevents you from having to write a big check to the bank for a car you don't even have anymore. However, don't just automatically buy the dealer's GAP policy. Check with your own auto insurance company first, or the credit union that pre-approved your loan. They often offer GAP coverage for a much lower one-time fee compared to the dealer's rolled-in price.
Good tip.
But if you do decide the dealer's product seems competitive or convenient, you must ask a specific high-leverage question before agreeing. Ask, does this specific GAP policy pay 150% of the loan deficiency, and does it cover my insurance deductible?
Why 150%? What does that mean?
Some premium GAP policies will pay up to 150% of the difference between the insurance payout and the loan balance. That extra cushion can actually give you some cash towards a down payment on your next car, which is a significant benefit. And getting your deductible covered is also a plus. If the policy offers those features, it might be worth paying a bit more for it compared to a basic policy.
Got it. Ask the specifics. What about the really big one, the extended warranty, or sometimes called a vehicle service contract?
Yes, the VSC. This is usually the biggest profit center on the menu. Before you even think about buying the dealer's contract, you absolutely need to get comparison quotes.
From where?
You can often get quotes from third-party warranty companies online. Or, here's a pro tip, you can even contact the finance department of another dealership that sells the same car brand, maybe even out of state, and ask for a price quote on the official manufacturer-backed extended warranty. Often, these other sources will sell the exact same factory warranty for hundreds, sometimes even thousands of dollars less than what your local dealer is asking.
Wow, okay. That's huge potential savings right there.
It really is. And if you are considering the dealer's contract, you need to verify the type of coverage very carefully. Don't just accept extended warranty. Ask, is this a bumper-to-bumper exclusionary policy, meaning it covers everything except a short list of excluded items? Or is it just a named component policy, which only covers the specific parts listed, often leaving major things out?
Exclusionary is better, generally.
Much better, much more comprehensive. And also ask, what is the deductible per repair visit? $0, $100, $200 makes a big difference.
Okay. What about those prepaid maintenance plans? The ones covering things like oil changes, tire rotations?
The sources we reviewed generally advise skepticism here. You need to ask, does this plan cover major, expensive scheduled services, like maybe a timing belt replacement or a transmission fluid flush down the road? Or is it really just covering basic oil and filter changes and tire rotations?
And if it's just the basic stuff?
Then you can almost certainly buy those services cheaper as you need them, or maybe get a less expensive package deal from a trusted independent mechanic or even another dealership's service department. Compare the total cost of the plan versus paying for those services a la carte over the expected ownership period.
Makes sense. Now, here's an advanced strategic maneuver you highlighted from the sources. Before agreeing to purchase any F&I product at all, you should ask to see the cancellation policy for that product in writing. Why is that so important?
It does a couple things. First, it signals your confidence and your understanding that these are optional products with terms and conditions. It shows the F&I manager you're serious and not easily swayed. Second, and more practically, it ensures that if you decide later you don't need the product, or maybe you sell the car early or you refinance the loan, you understand exactly how to get a prorated refund for the unused portion.
Because you can usually cancel these and get money back.
Yeah. Yes. For most VSCs, GAP, etc., you are legally entitled to a prorated refund if you cancel early. But dealers sometimes make that process difficult or obscure. Having the cancellation policy up front clarifies your rights.
Good one. Okay, nearly out of the F&I office. Before signing the final loan contract, any last critical questions?
Yes. One absolutely crucial question about the loan itself. Is there any prepayment penalty if I finance with you today?
Why ask that?
Because sometimes manufacturers offer special incentives like extra rebate cash, but only if you finance through their captive finance arm, like Ford Credit or Toyota Financial Services. If the dealer confirms there's no prepayment penalty on that loan, you could potentially take their financing to get that extra rebate, and then maybe a week or a month later, simply refinance the entire loan with your pre-approved credit union at their lower interest rate. You get the best of both worlds, the rebate and the low rate.
Ah, clever. If there's no penalty for paying it off early.
Exactly. And the very, very last step, the final safeguard before you sign on the dotted line, you must insist on seeing both the printed bank contract, the actual loan agreement, and the final purchase order or bill of sale side by side.
And you're comparing.
You meticulously review both documents line by line, and you verify that the absolute bottom line number, the total amount being financed, matches exactly on both documents. No discrepancies. Do not sign anything until those two critical numbers align perfectly.
Okay, let's shift gears pretty significantly now and talk about leasing. This is, as you said, an entirely different kind of financial beast compared to buying.
It really is. You're essentially entering into a long-term rental agreement with very specific terms. And instead of focusing all your negotiation energy on the out-the-door price,
Well, your main target shifts.
your primary negotiation center shifts to something called the capitalized cost, often shortened to cap cost.
Okay, what exactly is the cap cost?
Think of the cap cost as the negotiated selling price of the car itself, plus any mandatory dealer fees, like the dock fee, plus the cost of any add-on products you might agree to roll into the lease, like maybe excess wear and tear protection. It's basically the functional equivalent of the OTD price in a purchase scenario.
And critically, that cap cost, is it negotiable?
Yes, absolutely. This is a point many consumers miss. They think the lease payment is just some fixed number from the manufacturer. But the cap cost is negotiable. If you negotiate a lower cap cost, you will directly lower your resulting monthly lease payment.
Okay, so this is where you'd apply those manufacturer to consumer incentives or rebates we talked about earlier. How does that work in a lease?
Exactly. You negotiate the final selling price of the car first, just like you would if buying. Get that as low as possible. Then you apply any available manufacturer rebates or incentives as a cap cost reduction.
So the rebate lowers the starting price of the lease calculation.
Precisely. And it's generally advised against putting a large cash down payment, sometimes called a cap cost reduction from your own pocket, on a lease. Use the manufacturer's money, the rebates, to lower that initial cap cost instead. And just like buying, always push back against unwanted dealer accessories or add-ons that might be trying to inflate that cap cost. Aim for the lowest possible starting point.
Got it. Now, the entire lease agreement, the payment structure, it's determined by four main pillars, right? The first is the negotiable capitalized cost. What's the second?
The second pillar is the residual value.
Okay, what's that?
The residual value is the vehicle's projected value at the very end of the lease term, usually after, say, 36 or 48 months. This value is set by the leasing company, the bank, or the manufacturer's finance arm, based on factors like the specific model, the trim level, and crucially, the number of annual miles allotted in your contract. For example, 10,000, 12,000, or 15,000 miles per year.
And is the residual value negotiable?
No. This one is not negotiable. It's predetermined by the lender based on their forecasts of future used car values. Essentially, your monthly lease payment covers the difference, the depreciation that occurs between the starting cap cost and that ending residual value.
So, quick example. If the cap cost is, say, $40,000, and the residual value after 3 years is set at 75%, which would be $30,000.
Right. Then you're essentially paying for that $10,000 difference, $40K, $30K, in depreciation over the 36 months of the lease term, plus, of course, interest and any applicable taxes and fees.
Okay, pillar 3. This is the interest component called the money factor.
Yes, the money factor. And this is another absolutely critical point for anyone considering a lease. The money factor is basically the leasing industry's way of expressing the interest rate, or the annual percentage rate, APR, that you're paying on the lease.
But it looks really weird, right? It's usually presented as a tiny decimal number, like 0.000250 or something. It's intentionally confusing.
It often seems that way, yes. And just like with interest rates on loans, the dealer absolutely can, and often does, mark up the money factor above the lender's actual buy rate. They might get approved at one rate from the bank and offer you a higher one.
So they make back-end profit here too, just like with loan APRs.
Exactly. That markup, often 50 to 100 basis points or even more, is pure profit for them.
Okay, so how does a listener take that confusing decimal, like 0.00250, and turn it into an APR they can actually understand and maybe compare to their credit union's loan rates? Is there a formula?
There is a simple, non-negotiable conversion formula you absolutely must memorize or jot down if you're leasing. You take the money factor the dealer quotes you and you multiply it by 2,400.
Multiply by 2,400, okay.
That result gives you the effective APR, the interest rate you're actually paying. So in that example, if the dealer quotes a money factor of 0.000250, you multiply that by 2,400.
And that equals 6, so a 6% interest rate.
Exactly. Now, if you have excellent credit, the lender's true buy rate for you might actually be lower, maybe something like 0.00167 if you multiply that by 2,400.
You get 4, a 4% APR.
Right. So the dealer was trying to mark you up by 2 full percentage points. You absolutely must negotiate that money factor. Find out the buy rate if you can, or at least push them down significantly from their initial offer. If they won't budge on a clearly inflated money factor, you should be prepared to walk away.
Crucial calculation. Got it. And the fourth pillar is simply the state sales tax.
Correct. This is non-negotiable, obviously. Though it's worth noting that how sales tax is applied to a lease can vary quite a bit depending on which state you live in.
Yeah.
Some states charge tax up front on the total sum of payments, some charge it on the total selling price, the cap cost, but most commonly they just factor the tax into each individual monthly payment. You want to check your specific state's rules.
Okay. What about specific lease fees to watch out for?
Well, there's usually an acquisition fee, sometimes called a bank fee. This is charged by the leasing company simply to initiate the lease contract.
What does it cover?
It supposedly covers their administrative costs for setting up the lease. It often technically includes mandatory GAP insurance protection within it. The amount can range quite a bit, from maybe a few $100s to sometimes over $1,000 on luxury vehicles.
And is that negotiable?
Sometimes, yes, or at least partially. It's often rolled into the cap cost calculation, effectively increasing your monthly payment slightly. It's always worth asking if they can reduce or waive the acquisition fee, especially if you have strong credit or it's a promotional lease deal.
Okay. And then there's a fee at the end of the lease too, right?
Yes, the disposition fee. This is a fee charged by the leasing company if you simply return the lease car at the end of the term and decide not to immediately lease or finance another new car through that same lender or manufacturer.
So it's like a penalty for not staying loyal.
Kind of. They frame it as covering their costs for inspecting, cleaning, and processing the returned vehicle to get it ready for auction or resale. The typical disposition fee is usually somewhere in the range of $300 to maybe $595. It's usually waived if you lease again with them.
And of course, there are early termination fees if you try to get out of the lease contract before the full term is up, which can be very expensive.
Extremely expensive, yes. Leasing is generally not flexible in that regard.
Okay, so with all that complexity, why would someone choose to lease instead of buy? What are the pros?
There are some potential advantages. One big one is risk mitigation. You're essentially transferring the risk of unexpected depreciation onto the lender. You know, if the used car market suddenly tanks, or if the model you lease develops some known issue that hurts its resale value, that's the leasing company's problem at the end of the term, not yours.
Okay, protection from market fluctuations.
Right. There's also the convenience factor. You're typically always driving a relatively new car that's under the original manufacturer's warranty, so you usually avoid major repair costs. You get the latest tech and safety features more frequently.
And sometimes lower payments?
Sometimes, yes, the monthly payments on a lease can be lower than financing the same car over the same term because you're only paying for the depreciation portion, not the entire vehicle cost. And in some specific cases, depending on the car, the mileage, and the lease terms, the net total cost of ownership over, say, 3 years might actually be lower with a lease than financing and then trading in. Plus, there's flexibility, no long-term commitment, like a 6 or 7 year loan.
Okay, but what about the downsides, the cons of leasing?
Well, the biggest one is fundamental. The car is never truly yours. It's a long-term rental. You build zero equity over time.
Right.
There's also the potential for significant charges at the end of the lease term. If you drive more miles than your contract allows, the per-mile penalty can be steep, often 15 to 25 cents per mile.
That adds up fast if you go over by thousands of miles.
Very fast. And then the other charges for excessive wear and tear. This is subjective and can be a point of contention. The lease end inspection looks for things beyond normal use: significant dents, scratches, upholstery damage, worn tires, missing items like keys or floor mats. You can get billed for those repairs at potentially inflated dealer rates.
And you mentioned the disposition fee if you just walk away. Plus, if you incorrectly estimate your annual mileage needs up front, you might end up paying for depreciation you don't actually use if you drive less, or facing penalties if you drive more.
Exactly. And one more point. The residual values set by the leasing companies are often, shall we say, optimistic. They're frequently higher than what the car's actual fair market value turns out to be at the end of the lease. This makes the option to buy the car at lease end less attractive financially.
Which brings us to those lease end options. What actually happens when the term is up? What are your choices?
Basically, you have 3 main options. Option 1 is simple. Return the vehicle. You schedule a mandatory lease end inspection, usually done at the dealership. They assess it for that excess wear and tear, check the mileage, make sure you have both sets of keys, the owner's manual, etc. Assuming everything is in order, or you pay for any damages. You sign the odometer statement, hand over the keys, and pay that disposition fee, unless, of course, you're immediately leasing a new car from the same manufacturer, in which case they usually waive it.
Okay, so how do you protect yourself against surprise charges during that inspection?
Be proactive. The sources strongly recommend getting your own independent inspection done maybe 2 or 3 months before the official lease end date. Take it to a trusted mechanic or body shop. If they find minor damage like a small door ding or tires that are close to the wear limit, you can get those issues addressed yourself, likely much more cheaply, before the official dealership inspection.
Ah, fix it preemptively. Smart.
It saves you money and avoids paying the dealer's typically inflated repair rates after the fact.
Okay, option 2, move into a new lease.
Right. If you decide to lease another new car from the same manufacturer, or sometimes even just the same dealership group, as we said, the disposition fee on your returning lease is almost always waived as an incentive. But here's where you need to be savvy. Check for potential lease equity.
Lease equity, what's that?
Sometimes, particularly in recent markets where used car values have been high, the actual market value of your returning lease car might be higher than the predetermined residual value set in your original contract.
So the car is worth more than the lease company predicted.
Exactly. Maybe the residual was $20,000. The car is actually worth $23,000 on the open market today. That $3,000 difference is positive equity, lease equity. You need to make absolutely sure that the dealer acknowledges this equity and applies it as a cap cost reduction, like a down payment on your new lease deal.
Otherwise, they just pocket that equity.
Otherwise, they might just absorb it quietly. You have to advocate for that equity to be credited to you on the new transaction.
Good point. Okay, and finally, option 3. Buy the car yourself at the end of the lease.
Right. You have the contractual right, in most leases, to purchase the vehicle for that preset residual value price that was established way back when you signed the lease, plus usually a small purchase option fee.
What are the pros and cons of doing that?
Well, the main pro is certainty. You know the car's entire history. You drove it, you maintained it, hopefully.
Yeah.
There are no surprises about its condition. The main con is often financial. As we mentioned, that residual value price might be significantly higher than the car's current fair market value if you just went out and bought a similar used one.
So you might be overpaying.
You might be overpaying. Plus, you now own an older, depreciating asset that's likely out of its original warranty period. And if you need to get a loan to finance that buyout purchase, well, you're essentially starting all over again with a new car payment on an older car.
And we should note, as you touched on, some manufacturers are changing the rules here, right? Like Tesla.
That's a really important recent development, yes. Some automakers, most notably Tesla, and reportedly some others on specific models, have actually started eliminating the buyout option on their leases entirely. You simply must return the car at the end. So if buying out the lease is something you think you might want to do down the road, you absolutely need to verify that the option exists and is guaranteed in your specific lease contract before you sign it.
Okay, we've spent this entire deep dive talking about the tactics inside the dealership walls, how to navigate the negotiation, the F&I office, the lease terms. But maybe the most powerful tool you actually have is the knowledge you can gather outside the dealership before you even go in.
Absolutely. It's the power of collective community knowledge. Once you've kind of mastered the jargon and the core strategies we've discussed, you still need real-world, up-to-the-minute data to verify if the specific offer a dealer is giving you is actually fair in the current market.
Because dealers operate on information asymmetry, right? They know the market, the rates, the margins better than the average consumer.
Historically, yes. But we're definitely moving into an age of increased transparency, largely thanks to these specialized online communities and forums. They effectively give you access to the kind of cutting-edge market data that dealers, frankly, probably hate you knowing.
Okay, so let's talk specifics. The sources pointed to a few key examples. First up, for leasing specifically, the Leasehackr forum.
Yeah, Leasehackr is fantastic. It's basically become the online hub for savvy shoppers who are focused specifically on getting the best possible lease deals. It acts as this massive crowdsourced database of successful lease negotiations.
So how would you actually use it tactically?
Okay, let's say you're interested in leasing, I don't know, a Honda CR-V. You go to the Leasehackr forum, specifically to the section called Sign Deals and Tips. You can then search or browse for your specific make and model Honda CR-V and maybe even filter by your region or state because lease programs vary geographically.
And you'll find posts from other users who just leased that car.
Exactly. You'll find detailed posts from people who have recently signed a lease on that exact car, and they often share all the crucial numbers. The MSRP, the negotiated selling price, cap cost, the residual value percentage used, the specific money factor they achieved, any rebates or incentives applied, the lease term, the mileage allowance, and most importantly, their final monthly payment amount, including tax.
Wow. So you could essentially find a template for what a great deal on that specific car looks like right now in your area.
Precisely. It gives you a realistic target. You shouldn't be going into the dealership negotiating blindly on a lease anymore. You should be walking in armed with data from Leasehackr, showing the salesperson, look, here's a deal someone just got last week on this exact car with these terms. I expect you to replicate this deal or even beat it. It provides incredible leverage and benchmarking capability. It's priceless for leasing.
That's powerful. And beyond just the financial transaction, these communities also provide crucial technical verification too, right? The sources mentioned forums like the CivicXI forum, which is super focused on specific vehicle generations, like the 11th gen Honda Civic.
Yeah, forums like that are invaluable for niche knowledge that goes way beyond just the buying or leasing process. They often have dedicated subforums covering really detailed technical topics, maybe specific engine tuning options, common problems to watch out for, recommended maintenance schedules, which might differ from the dealer's upsell recommendations, break-in procedures, even advice for track days or autocross if it's a performance model.
So how does that technical knowledge help you in the dealership, particularly back in that F&I office?
Well, it allows you to critically evaluate the value proposition of those add-on products we discussed earlier. For example, if the F&I manager is pitching you hard on a $1,500 prepaid maintenance plan for your new Civic, you can quickly search the CivicDale forum right there on your phone or have done it beforehand. You might find threads where experienced owners have calculated that the actual cost of performing all the necessary maintenance services over the next 5 years, according to the manufacturer's schedule, is maybe only closer to $800 if you use an independent mechanic or even just pay the dealer a la carte.
So you can verify if the dealer's plan is overpriced or if it even covers services that are truly recommended for that specific model.
Exactly. You get peer-reviewed wisdom on whether those dealer services are priced fairly and, just as importantly, whether they're even necessary or just designed to generate profit.
Okay. And for verifying the initial pricing, especially now with additional dealer markups, ADM, being so common on popular cars, the sources pointed to sites like Motoring Obsession that offer specialized tracking tools.
Yes, sites like that are becoming increasingly useful. They often have tools like maybe a CTR finder for the Civic Type R, but crucially, many are now tracking and publishing dealer markup stats for high-demand vehicles across the country.
So you can see what other dealers are actually charging in terms of ADM for the car you want.
Let's talk practical applications. Say you walk into a dealership and you see that dreaded dealer addendum sticker showing a $5,000 additional dealer markup on the car you want.
Right. And the salesperson says, oh yeah, everyone's paying that market adjustment.
Exactly. You can immediately pull up the Motoring Obsession tracker or a similar site right there on your phone. You find the stats for that specific model in your region and maybe show the salesperson, well, actually, according to this data aggregated from hundreds of recent sales, the average markup being paid for this car in our area is only $1,500. And look, several dealers nearby are selling it at MSRP with no markup at all.
That completely undercuts their argument.
It totally nullifies their claim that everyone is paying this price. You're bringing the collective, documented wisdom of thousands of other buyers directly into your one-on-one negotiation. It provides powerful, objective, external verification.
So the ultimate goal of using all these community resources, Leasehackr, model-specific forums, markup trackers, is really to ensure you are not unknowingly paying those massively inflated prices, right? That 200, 300% markup on some F&I products, or unnecessary ADM.
Precisely. It's about making sure your final itemized out-the-door quote or your lease structure reflects fair market charges based on real-world data. You should ideally walk into any negotiation already armed with, say, a competitive quote from a third-party warranty provider, maybe a printout of a successful benchmark deal from Leasehackr if you're leasing.
So you're prepared to ask those pointed questions.
Exactly. You should be ready to ask things like, based on current market data, is there a discount off MSRP available for this vehicle right now? Or can you show me how this itemized OTD quote compares to documented deals in the community? Are these charges, particularly the doc fee and any add-ons, fair based on regional norms?
This level of transparency, fueled by online communities, It really does fundamentally change the traditional dealership dynamic, doesn't it? It feels like it shifts the power structure significantly away from the dealer's long-held information advantage.
It absolutely does. Knowledge is power, as they say.
Okay, let's try and recap the absolute essentials from this deep dive. First and foremost, stay laser-focused on the out-the-door price initially. Everything flows from that number.
Right. And isolate the trade-in and the down payment discussions, treat them as completely separate. Later transactions, don't bundle them.
Second, secure your own financing pre-approval before you go to the dealership. Use that pre-approval as leverage against the dealer's potentially marked up APR, demanding they beat your rate by at least that 0.25%.
Yeah, that 0.25% rule is key. And third, in the F&I office, always demand to see the total dollar price, the full cost, not just the marginal monthly payment increase, for any and all add-on products they offer you.
And if you do decide to buy one, negotiate the price down hard, and maybe even ask for that cancellation policy in writing up front.
Couldn't agree more. The sources really confirm that the single most effective tactic against the dealership's often sophisticated, multi-layered system is simply exhaustive preparation and the deliberate isolating of variables.
Break the transaction down into pieces.
Exactly. By separating the negotiation of the car's price from the financing discussion and separating that from the add-on product pitches, you deny the dealer the opportunity to hide their profit margins by shuffling numbers between those different buckets. Remember, you are never obligated to finance through them, trade your car with them, or buy any add-ons simultaneously with the vehicle purchase itself. That separation is your ultimate power.
So here's the final thought we want to leave you with today. If knowledge truly is power, and we know that dealers have historically relied on maximizing their profit through complexity, through information asymmetry, through a lack of transparency, and they've done this very successfully for decades, what is the real long-term impact likely to be on the entire traditional automotive retail model now that these specialized online communities have effectively made things like the buy rate for loans and leases, the typical profit markups on F&I products, and frankly, the dealer's entire playbook, essentially common knowledge for anyone willing to do a little research?
It's a fundamental shift, isn't it? We're seeing this transfer of information and therefore power towards the consumer in a way the industry is clearly still scrambling to adapt to. Definitely something to mull over.
Indeed. Something to think about until our next deep dive.